everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking all about the new Tweed collection that just launched from Chanel. They launched 4 limited edition eyeshadow palettes. I picked up 2 of them and we're going to talk about them today. First thing I gotta mention is the audio issue I've been having recently. So if you guys watched my previous review of the Wayne Goss palette and the Gucci blush, I mentioned that I was having audio issues, meaning that I filmed an entire video with no sound. Well, guess what, y'all? I did it again. I did it again. This mic is gonna be the death of me. I don't know what happened. I made sure that everything was plugged in tight. I don't know what's going on with that mic. So I filmed the entire video with no sound. So I'm going to be doing the exact same thing that I did in the previous video. I will walk you through the eyeshadow look that I created using each one of the palettes. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the information about this new collection. This is inspired by Chanel's Tweed fashion collection. Chanel's kind of known for their tweed patterns, and I was really interested in this collection because of the packaging, because of the embossing on the actual eyeshadows. They took such detail in creating these eyeshadows, and I love the embossing. I love the little pouches that they come in. They all correspond with the actual tones in each of their palettes, and they have the little Chanel logo on the inside. Really outdone themselves when it comes to the attention to detail in this collection. With all of that said, these palettes are $88, and it's a very steep price. It is. And some would say, well, that's how much Tom Ford quads are, right? Well, yeah, they're $89, but in a Tom Ford quad, I've seen them between 6 and 10 grams worth of product in a Tom Ford quad. Chanel, these are 2 grams. So there's a definite difference when it comes to the price between a Tom Ford quad and a Chanel quad. So these are definitely more of a collector item, if you will. They are for those who love the embossing, who love the tweed packaging, and that's kind of what we're getting with this collection. So let's talk about the 2 palettes that I picked up. So I grabbed mine looks terrible after swatching it, but that's kind of what happens when you review a palette. It kind of gets trashed, but this is number 4 Tweed Brun Et Rose. So this was the one I was most excited about because I've recently fallen madly in love with cool tone eyeshadows. I just love cool tone eyeshadow looks. I used to wear warm tones all the time, and there's just something about cool tones. They kind of have my heart right now. So this was the one I was most excited about. And the cute tweed packaging that it comes in, so cute. You guys, this is absolutely beautiful. Because we are coming on to fall, I went ahead and grabbed number 1 Tweed Cuirve. Not sure how you pronounce it, but this is the warmer of the 4 palettes, and it also has a corresponding tweed little pouch that it goes in. They did a great job matching the tweed pouch to the eyeshadow, so kudos to them. In this video, I'm going to create a look using each one of the palettes. Then we will get into a few swatches and comparisons, and then of course I will get into my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's get into the eyeshadow looks, and I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. Let's go ahead and jump into the eyeshadow look using the palette number 1 Tweed Cuirve. First shade that I grabbed was this really pretty gold shade here on the bottom. And this shade was a stunner. This kind of surprised me. It's the softest, most delicate shimmer shadow. It's got those sparkly particles to it, but in the softest way. They absolutely spread over the lid like a dream. Like, this is definitely my favorite shade in this palette in particular, and probably one of my favorites from Chanel. This shade is absolutely beautiful on the lid. It's just gorgeous. Then I went ahead and grabbed this shade right next to it, and I placed that on the outer corner, but I decided to use the little felt tip applicator that came in these little palettes. You can never go wrong with a felt tip applicator. These are the best tools in your arsenal, especially for shades like this. And these shades are quite creamy. So they have a cream touch to them. That's the reason why my palette looks the way that it does, because both palettes definitely have a creamy base, more so in the number 4. This one is much more creamier than number 1. So then I went ahead and grabbed this shade and I put that in the crease and really brought the look together. It blended beautifully in the crease. It's just one of those shades that's very easy to work with, very easy to blend, no harsh lines. It's a great shade. Then I took the darkest shade in the palette and I put that on the outer corner just to kind of deepen things up a little bit. And on the lower lash line, I went ahead and grabbed this shade and blended it all into the lower lash line, and then grabbed the darker shade, put it on the outer corner to give that smokiness on the outer corner. And I feel like the look turned out really beautiful. It's very easy, everyday, warm, and very wearable eyeshadow look. And all of the shades performed beautifully. Like, I did not have one single problem with any of the shades in this palette. That's it for the look using the number 1 palette. Let's jump into the look using the number 4 palette. So just like the last palette, I went ahead and grabbed this beautiful pink shade on the bottom. It has exactly what the gold shade in the last palette had. It has those gorgeous, finely milled glitter particles that give the lid such a beautiful sparkle without being too much, without being overwhelming. It's just a gorgeous shade. Then I went up to this shade. Now this shade on the top row is kind of my skin tone, so it doesn't really show up on me. I went ahead and tried to put it on the outer corner using the felt tip applicator that came in the palette, and it didn't really show up that well. I tried to put it in the crease. It just doesn't really give me a lot. In my opinion, for me and my complexion, it's kind of a dud. It's just kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. So I went ahead and grabbed this shade and I sweeped that into the crease just like I did in the last look. It blended beautifully, added a little bit of that soft shimmer, but gave me a little bit of the dimension in the crease that I was needing. Then I went ahead and grabbed the darker shade in the palette, put it on the outer corner, smoked it in. Absolutely perfect. I had no issues with that shade. It's a very creamy formula. Like I mentioned earlier, this palette is a little more creamier to the touch than the number 1 palette. The shades just blend and they're kind of like a cream powder, if you will. They're really, really a beautiful formula. Then I went ahead and put this shade on the lower lash line, smoked it in, blended beautifully, and then I grabbed this darker shade with a flat tip brush and smoked it into the lash line. And this is the final look using the number 4 palette, and I think it turned out really beautiful. Despite the fact that it did have a dud in the palette for me and my complexion, overall I love the way that the eyeshadow look turned out. It gives me the Nude Dip from Tom Ford. So if you guys have the Nude Dip palette, it's kind of similar as far as tones and how they look and how they wear. I will definitely compare this palette next to Nude Dip so you guys can see how it compares. So that's it for the eyeshadow looks. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches, and I'm going to share a few swatches and comparisons so you guys can see the tones, and then we will go ahead and get into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. let's go ahead and jump into my final thoughts. In my personal opinion, these palettes are going to be for those of you out there who love to collect makeup. Otherwise, you just can't justify it. $88 for 2 grams worth of product is kind of absurd, right? It's a very, very expensive piece. However, if you are a collector, these are absolutely stunning. Like I mentioned earlier, the attention to detail that Chanel went in creating this collection is perfect. And putting the little Chanel label on the inside stitching and then having the tweed match and correspond with each of the palettes. And then the absolute most beautiful embossing I've ever seen on an eyeshadow. I've never seen anything like it. It's so beautiful. I wish that mine wasn't ruined, but they kind of are. That's okay. But overall, these are for those collectors. These are those type of palettes that are going to be for that makeup lover that wants it sitting out on the counter. For example, this Chantecaille blush was kind of ridiculous as far as price goes, but I keep it out on my desk. I look at it. It's beautiful. I love it sitting here on my makeup desk. That's kind of what these palettes are for me. I love the packaging. I love the overall look of them. And it's kind of a crossover with their fashion. And it kind of gives those of us that don't want to spend $5,000 on a purse the ability to have something from Chanel that's unique and fun. And that's what these are about. If you're wanting something special as far as formula or color story, these are not going to be it. For me, I'm not a huge collector of Chanel. I have just started dipping my toes in Chanel makeup. So I don't know a lot about Chanel makeup. I don't have a lot of experience with Chanel makeup. And I haven't always loved the palettes that I've gotten from Chanel. So based on formula alone, there's a few products from Chanel as far as eyeshadow and blush that I don't love. These two palettes perform beautifully. So there are some palettes that I've gotten from Chanel that I haven't loved, and I just thought it was a want, right? But these are really beautiful, and I didn't really experience a lot of fallout. These are not going to give you a lot of depth though. So if you're someone that likes a really bold eyeshadow look, these are not going to give that to you. These are definitely the type of formula that's more light, more sophisticated, a little bit more natural. They're not going to give you a lot of depth. They're just not. The two that I have anyway. You can build them so far, and don't get me wrong, they give you a dark shade to give you depth, but these are not a Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath, right? Like, this is a completely different type of formula. It's a totally different feel. It's all going to boil down to collecting them. They are limited edition for a reason. I knew that I was paying for the packaging, for the unique embossing that I will probably never get in another palette. I was paying for that. That's what I was paying for. And I knew that going into it. And that's kind of my point to all of this. You have to know what you're getting into before you go ahead and spend the $88 on it. If you're okay with spending that for the unique packaging, you'll love these. You'll absolutely love them. And that's what it boils down to. If the packaging to you is just not really that worth it, keep it moving, wait for the next launch. That's where I'm coming from. So that's it for the video. I hope that the review was helpful. Sound off down below. How many of you guys have picked up these palettes? I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. So sound off down below, let us know. Also, my next video will be talking all about the new foundation from Patrick Ta. So I've been wearing it for 2 days now. Tomorrow will be day 3. I cannot wait to share my experience with you guys. So be on the look for that video coming up very soon. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.